Hey everybody, want to talk today about the unintended consequences of sending too many candidates to interview for a specific position that you're trying to recruit for. So you would think that, to have more candidates, the more the better, right? Well, I was going to bring my calendar in there for a second. I'll leave it out there just for a minute and just talk. You would think that the more candidates, the better, but that's not necessarily the case, because what ends up happening is that the more candidates you add to the mix, the longer it's going to take for the practice to interview all of those candidates. It's always very nice to give your client the choice of 5, 6, 7 candidates from which to choose. But there is an unintended and negative consequence that can occur from giving them all of that choice and all of those options. And essentially what it is the time that it will take to interview all of those candidates. For you to set up all those interviews, if they're going to interview that many candidates, that's going to take about a month. Best case scenario, I mean, it depends on how motivated the client is, but the rule of thumb here is that the more people you add to the mix, the longer it's going to take, and therefore that first candidate that was interviewed, it's going to be a couple weeks. By the time the practice is done with all of their interviews, there's a very good chance that that first, second, third candidate may move on to other opportunities, and you don't want to lose them. You want to make sure that they're included in the mix. So what I try and do is give my clients 2 to 3, maybe 4 individuals to choose from. And again, every situation and scenario is different, but I don't like to go overboard specifically for that reason, because by the time the interviews have concluded, you're hoping that, is that first and second candidate, are they still interested? It's been 3 weeks. Now, the client isn't really ever thinking about that. Their primary goal is to find the best person, and a lot of times, I've heard this directly from my clients. They'll say, well, if they move on, then they move on. Nothing we can do about it. But you might get left with just some inferior individuals in there, and if you had 6 people let's say you had 4 people that were interviewing with a given client, and 2 of them left, well, now you only have 2 candidates. And what if one of them isn't really a great choice, and what if the other one decides that they don't want that job? So now the 4 candidates that you had, you're down to nothing. And that is the potential risk of trying to incorporate and involve too many candidates into the process at one time, is that it will just take too long. And so I want to just make sure that everybody is mindful of that. Try and find 2 or 3 really good candidates. Do your best to get them all in within a few days of each other, if that is at all possible, because that is your best chance for success. You'll get them all to meet with the client. The client will then make a decision, and you can make an offer to that candidate and not have to wait between having too much time from when that first person interviewed until when the interviews have concluded.